Some of the things I think about, throughout my career that I've learned was definitely to take opportunities as they come. Things are very random, much like these random walk talks. And you can't plan everything out in life. You can only do your best to prepare, but it's not a perfectly straight line. Sometimes you bounce around in different areas and do different things. Hello everyone, welcome. Welcome to another random walk with Elaine. Today we are walking on the Western Maryland Rail Trail. This is a really long paved trail just outside of Hancock, Maryland. And I was doing a road trip and decided to stop here because it's just a really nice shady area and really flat scenic trail. Used to be a railroad line and they paved over it, so lots of walkers, hikers, bikers that use this trail. So that's today's walk. So today's topic and something I wanted to talk about is a bit more reflective on things I wish I knew when I first started my career. And as I think back to, I can vividly remember when I started my career in engineering. I can remember what my biggest fear was. And this was right out of college, my first engineering job in industry. And I can remember that my biggest fear was, what if they ask me to do something that I don't know how to do? And it's so interesting because I've been working professionally now for 26 years. And as I still think about that fear I had early in my career, and what I've learned since then, is that there was no need for that fear. That I now know that nobody knows everything. So really, we're all asked to do things that we don't know how to do because we're figuring it out. And you're not expected to figure out things alone. It's always done in like a team environment. So that fear of like failure and everything doesn't rest on the individual. Like I was internalizing so much as an individual person that it was completely unfounded. So working in a team environment, and that's why things like reviews and peer reviews and things like that exist, just because the team is there to make sure that you don't fail. There's a lot of, helping each other out and reviews and checks and things like that happen to where the whole group effort, the whole organization, the whole team is pulling together to be successful. Nobody wants an individual to fail. It's the whole team working together. And just starting out, I didn't know that. I thought it was all on me. And, later on I learned, it was like, well, that was a fear I really didn't need to have. But starting out, you do not know these things. So, yeah, so that fear, went away over time as I learned more and I got more experience. Some of the things I think about, throughout my career that I've learned was definitely to take opportunities as they come. Things are very random, much like these random walk talks. And you can't plan everything out in life. You can only do your best to prepare, but it's not a perfectly straight line. Sometimes you bounce around in different areas and do different things. And so many times in our lives, in our careers, opportunities arise, and to take chances, to go after those opportunities when they come up. So in my case, I was working in engineering and I had the opportunity to learn a completely new field, a new technical field that was very, very specialized. So for me, it was working in spacecraft contamination control, meaning anytime you put something in space, all of the components and systems are very, very sensitive to contaminants, things like, oily films and dust particles. Things like, like when you are wearing glasses or sunglasses and you smudge them with your fingerprints and you can't see as well. The same thing happens with spacecraft in space. The only thing is that, we can't go up there and fix it. We have to plan and work through that. And so I had the opportunity early in my career to learn that area. I had no clue about that this area existed, that this was a thing, until I started working and the opportunity came up to learn this field. And that was actually like a major turning point in my career that led to many other things, especially later on in my career with NASA. It was all because I had an opportunity. Somebody approached me and was like, hey, we need somebody to work in this area. Are you interested? And I said, yes. That was like a whole major turning point. So take those opportunities when they come, because you never know where they may lead. Also, something I have learned and that I think about as I look back over my career is that you can always change direction. You don't have to stick with one singular thing your entire life. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to do different things, and you are allowed to completely change direction, to try things out, see what works, see what doesn't work. I think a lot of times that's what's more valuable, is to find out what we don't enjoy just as much as figuring out what it is that we do enjoy. It's all about trying things out and getting those experiences and learning from them and growing from them. And you only do that by doing different things instead of doing the same thing over and over again. I think sometimes we can fall into a trap because once we learn something, once we know something, and sometimes even once we master something, it can feel very comfortable. It can feel very secure and safe because there's a lot less challenge there. But where is the growth? Where is the opportunity to keep learning? And sometimes that goes away. And I have found that I can feel when that's happening in my career, where it's like, I feel like I'm no longer being challenged in a way anymore. I need to do something different. And sometimes I don't even know what it is. I just know I need to do something different. And then that makes me aware of looking for different opportunities. So yeah, you can always change direction. And like I said, finding out what you don't like or what isn't the right timing is just as valuable as finding out what you do enjoy. For me, I, for a while, studied patent law and actually did my master's in this area. But it was enough where I enjoyed what I learned, but I also learned I didn't want to make that my career, that it just wasn't the right fit for me. But I still utilized the knowledge that I gained from that education throughout my career. So it wasn't a waste just because my career didn't go that direction, that I didn't become, a patent lawyer, things like that. But knowing intellectual property and knowing the patent process and knowing more about legal terminology, that was what was more valuable for me, and what I learned and used later on in my career. Even though I stayed with engineering, and then eventually moved my way up to leadership and things like that. So it's totally okay to change your mind, change direction. Like I said, this is what keeps us growing and keeps us changing, keeps us pushing forward. So yeah, when you think back, for those of you that have been through careers, longer careers and things like that, like what are those experiences that that you had where you really learned something, even though it's something like you may not have become that in your career, but where you had that experience, you had an opportunity, you took it, and you really learned something new. Um, those are things I think about as well. So, and that it doesn't ever stop if you don't want it to. So I like to say that I am a lifelong learner. That I like keep doing different things over time. That it's not just something where, once you finish college and get out in the working world that you stop learning. You just, that's just your formal learning process. But there's other ways to keep learning, keep doing things and experiencing new things. And so that's what I try to seek out, so that I am that lifelong learner. So yeah, just a nice little reflection that I wanted to do over my career on this topic, in case it helps those that are brand new starting out in their careers. Maybe you feel the same way, of this pressure of needing to know everything, needing to appear as an expert in something, even though you are just starting out, and maybe you have a fear of failure or a fear of making mistakes because you're brand new. Just know that I was there at one point as well. And with this perspective now, offering that up to you all in case it helps. And for those that are experienced, what are those things? Are you also a lifelong learner? And what are those experiences that you've had where you find you did the most growth, even though you may not have sought it out, just because an opportunity presented itself and you took it. So yeah, those are today's thoughts as we walk along the Western Maryland Rail Trail on a really nice, sunny, beautiful day. So with that, I will thank you for walking with me on this trail, and I will see you on the next random walk.